Hello, mi gente. Welcome to my YouTube channel. So I told you guys a few weeks back I was gonna start using my social media platforms to start speaking out on things that I felt like were important to me and could be useful to other people. And I decided to just go ahead and start my YouTube channel and just go out there and just start talking about the things that I found useful in my life and that I hope could help somebody else out there. And today, what I wanted to talk about was healing the inner child. Now, I know a lot of people, especially the people that I'm surrounded with on a friendship level, the relationships that I'm trying to keep close and friendships. A lot of us are on our spiritual journey, and I feel like whether you know it or not, everybody's on their own spiritual journey. I'm not here to talk about religion. I'm not here to talk about who's right, who's wrong, what opinions others have. What I'm here to talk about on my platform is just what worked for me and how it could help you guys out in possible similar situations. And one thing for me that really truly helped me open my eyes and have a better understanding of who I was and what I was going through and why I was going through a lot of the things I was going through was inner child healing the inner child. And I came to that a little bit later on in my journey because I was doing the normal things I was always doing. I was praying, I was meditating. I kept my relationship with God very open and very close. I was always talking to God constantly. I was just asking, daily for guidance. I was asking for help in what to do next in my healing because I was dealing with a lot of emotional pain. I was dealing with a lot of things that I felt like I didn't deal with when I was much younger. Looking back on my background, I was adopted or taken from my actual mother at the age of 4, brought into a new house, and knowing children, if you know me at all, I love children. I started a teaching career when I was 18 years old, working in daycares, and from there I moved on into Head Start. And really working with children and taking trainings on brain development, taking trainings on how children function in the first 5 years of a child's life from birth to age 5. I learned so much, not for them. Well, yeah, of course for them, but I've learned a lot for me because when I started understanding how trauma affects a child's brain at such a young age, I started to understand me more. I started to understand how certain events in my life played out the way they did and why I was reacting and doing the things I was doing later on as an adult. And the inner child, although you're an adult, we all have an inner child. That inner child is where we stem a lot of our choices and a lot of the things that we do as adults, how we parent, how we cope and deal with relationships, and how we do certain things, and how certain triggers affect us later on in life. And when when I talk about trauma, I wanna make this clear across the board. I don't care if it was emotional trauma, I don't care if it was mental trauma, sexual trauma, physical trauma. All trauma is equally as important as the last to anybody. So when some people want to compare, well, this person didn't go through this or this person went through that, so that person might have more baggage on them. Listen, trauma affects everybody differently. It does not matter. It does not matter what you went through. It does not matter what you're going through, whether it's a small thing, whether it's a big thing. A small thing to somebody could be something drastic to the next person. So I want to make that clear. Whatever trauma that you may have experienced as a child, just know it is important to deal with it if you did not, as a child, deal with it now. And when we talk about children and the things that they go through and how that affects them later on in life. What I want people to understand is when you have a fresh new baby, when a baby is brought into this world, listen, I in my heart, I know we are all spiritual beings. And when you really spend time with children, you know that they are the purest form of love that could possibly enter this world. Children are fully just cautious beings. They're entering a world where they don't know hurt yet. They don't know pain yet. They know is that first relationship with their parents. When you're first born, that relationship and that connection that you have with your parent, that is the start of a child's development. And not even then, it starts in the womb. Like if you notice that a baby knows its mother's scent, it knows its mother's voice, it knows its mother just from coming out. Like I've seen videos of a child just like turning to the mom's head, turning its head towards the mom when the mom is speaking versus like the doctor, because it already has identified that that is somebody that they built that relationship with. Now, healing the inner child, a lot of that has to do with those first relationships in life, whether they're with siblings, parents, grandparents, a lot of people who may have been in the foster home, like just trying to work and weave through that trauma. A lot of things that we go through that we may push back later on in life, when you're seeing that you're having difficulty with self-love, or you're having difficulty with relationships with friends, family members, in romantic relationships, sometimes you may not understand what is causing such problems or what are triggers for you. And with healing yourself and healing that baby inside, that child who may have had those hard times, that didn't get the full-on love that they needed, because honestly, if we really want to talk about it, what every kid needs in this world is love. Like really, to be functional, to be healthy, of course you need much more. You need clothing, you need shelter, you need food, all those things. But when we want to talk about brain development, when we want to talk about how a child who was neglected versus a child who was nurtured have different brain developments. Now, this is something I did learn in a training with a neurologist that we took when I was working for Head Start. And he showed two pictures of two children, both of their brain scans, same age. One was in a loving home, normal activity, being fed on time, having all their needs met. And then there was another child who was a foster child. That child came from a home that was not in the best shape, was neglected as a child, cries were not answered to, was not being fed normally. You could literally see in the scans, in these x-rays, the deterioration in the brain of the child who was neglected. That is one training I would never ever forget, because it opened up my eyes to how shunning a child and keeping them away from the love that they need can have tremendous effect on their development. And one thing from me that I noticed when I was dealing with children, especially working in Head Start, I dealt with a lot of children who didn't come from the best backgrounds. Sometimes, you know, they didn't have what others had at different schools, which is why the program was in place. It helped parents build relationships with their children. We taught families how to teach and love on their babies if they needed help in those areas. But the number one thing I realized with those children were the ones who needed more love, they always acted out. And the more love that you gave them, the more you seen the change in their behavior. You can yell at a child, you can hit a child, you can spank a child, but the main thing here, what that does to a kid is that causes trauma and triggers. And those traumas and triggers is where that inner child healing comes into place later on, because they need to heal from that. When you look at a child, they don't know why you're upset. They don't understand the weight of the world. When a parent is dealing with work, bills, relationship problems, car notes, all that type of stuff, a child does not know anything about that. All they know is mommy, daddy, I want to play, I need to eat, I need clothes, I'm dirty, I want to play, I need to eat. Like just basic needs that need to be met. And at that very small gap from birth to age 5 is when you start building that trust with your child. As soon as they come out the womb, when a child is crying and that child gets their diaper changed, or that child gets a bottle, or that child gets their nose clean, or a sock move that may have been uncomfortable, you are registering those receptors in that child's brain that you are meeting that child's need. That is healthy in a relationship with a parent and a child. But then you have children who, when they start seeing that those needs aren't being met, and that you see that they're having more neglect than they are being attended to, that's when those trust issues start to form in a baby. So when we talk about healing an inner child, we need to talk about the cycles that need to be broke. When you're noticing depression, when you're noticing anxiety, or when you're noticing, and I'm speaking at this point for women. Men definitely need inner child healing just as much as women, but I didn't really have the privilege of being around too many men to really see how men dealt with emotional trauma. But from a lot of the women and friendships I've built, one thing I had noticed that I was dealing with, that other women were dealing with, was constant crying. Constant crying and breaking down, and just having a lot of emotional pain and dealing with just life. As I got much older, especially to this point now, I realized that is not a normal state to be in all the time. If you find yourself emotionally hurt a lot, if you find yourself going through drug addiction, alcohol addiction, or just different things that you use to cope with pain, not physical, maybe physical pain, but emotional pain, that's when you need to reevaluate what is going on inside internally. And for me, I really had to sit down and analyze everything. Like when I started teaching and I started dealing with children, I started taking a step back and realizing what my childhood consisted of. I didn't have the worst childhood, but the very first years of my life, I knew trauma from birth. And it was an unfortunate situation. There was, of course, drug abuse and physical abuse and things of that a child just shouldn't be going through. And those couple years, you still love your parent. You don't know what your parent's going through. You still love them. But all of those things that a child shouldn't be going through, they help mold them into who they become. So moving on into another home, not understanding why I wasn't with my mom, really not understanding the picture as a whole, and piecing together things and creating scenarios in my own brain, I started creating my own storyline. I started creating my own belief systems, and I started programming my own subconscious mind and doing things that I saw growing up, doing things and acting out in different ways, not knowing that really all I truly needed was that love and that reassurance and that healing. And when I got taken out of that environment, my mom, who did raise me, she did the best that she could. She definitely put me in therapy. That's something that I remember early on in life. I've been in therapy since I was very young. And even then, it still didn't register to me because I still wasn't clicking into what was going on inside. I was more worried about what was going on outside, my situation, my life situation, my mother's situation, and things that weren't fixable at that moment. I guess I could say there was no fixing the physical of what was going on outside versus what could have been done inside to get that healing done, to close old wounds and start healing and building better relationships with the people around me, and not closing myself off and not dropping into that depression, and not understanding where all of this was coming from. So when we talk about healing the inner child, I think a lot of it has to do with first sitting down and actually observing the habits that you have, observing certain things that you do that may not be healthy, that may, like when you look at things that you do with your children, if it's yelling at them, or if it's physically hitting them, or if it's just the things that when you walk away, like, why did I do that, or was that out of anger, or why am I so frustrated right now, or when you've seen that certain little things that may not affect other people affect you so much. Those are triggers. You have to understand why those certain little things, and it could be anything. A trigger could be anything, and that is something that I've come to realize. Like, I'm trying to think of a scenario to explain to you guys, but you probably more or less know when they call it a pet peeve or something. Some people may be annoyed by something, and some other people might look at it like, that doesn't bother me at all. Sit down and really question why is that about you? Like, what about that situation really triggers you or makes you mad or changes those emotions? What kind of thoughts are you holding inside your head that just make you dwell and put you in a depressed state? A lot of people don't realize that the things that you don't deal with now, or even when you're younger on in life, they have a ripple effect later on in your life. And sometimes it might cost you jobs, it might cost you children, like losing your kids in foster care because you're repeating bad cycles and habits that you've brought back from your childhood. When we talk about breaking karmic cycles and generational curses, let me tell you something, those are so real. Those are so real. And we're at a time now that I think a lot more people are starting to be aware of karmic cycles and generational curses. When you see drinking and drug abuse being broken, or even trickling down and being continued, those are things that need to be nipped in the butt. Like, a lot of the people that I associate myself with, we have very similar backgrounds. But one thing I can say from the trauma and the unfortunate situations that we came from, we came out way stronger. And we've seen patterns, and we've seen things that we made cautious choices to say, we're not repeating those cycles. And when we start seeing little things that are being repeated in cycles, that's when you have to have full and total body awareness and take your power back to be like, this is where this ends. This is where I'm cutting this at. This is what I will not be passing down to my children. Be the person that you needed as a child. And that all starts with inner healing. You need to start healing from the inside out. And certain ways to do that is, for me, meditating, starting to pray, starting to build that relationship with God. Because if you ever sit there and wonder, like, what inside is missing, like why can't I fully be happy? Why am I not at peace? Why am I frustrated? Let me tell you something. Crying all the time, being hurt all the time, being sad all the time, that is not normal. That is not normal. Those right there, let's start there. That when you start seeing a pattern of that, that should be some key pointers of, maybe I need some healing. Maybe I need to dig a little bit deeper, get a therapist, start doing that work, start taking the steps necessary to start healing yourself. Because what you don't realize is, when you don't heal yourself and you're having children or you're having relationships, you're pouring all that. You ever heard the phrase, heal your old, it's something like, heal those old wounds before you bleed all over people who didn't cut you. And that's exactly what's going to happen. Then you're going to be dealing with the trauma or the situations of your unhealedness destroying other things in your life. There's so many things that you can talk about and really go into when we talk about inner healing and inner child healing. But one thing I want everybody to really know, whatever your trauma is, whatever you went through as a child, you can overcome, and you can really still feel that sense of peace. We are all spiritual beings. We are all here for a blink of time. And a lot of that stuff that we go through, believe it or not, like it says in the Bible, the pain that you feel, that you're feeling, cannot compare to the joy that's to come. I don't care who I'm toe to toe with. You can't tell me that that's not true. I've been there before. I've been so low, and I've always come out on the other side, because that is the law. That is how God made us. Like you can't, there's nothing that you go through that you can't come out of. And I know sometimes people go through things where they feel like it's just unbearable, that they just can't take it no more. Take a deep breath and start really being aware of your thoughts and your situation and why it's like that. Like anything that you go through, you can overcome. You are not your flesh. You are not this body. You are a spirit with a body, but you are not this body. So what happens to this flesh, with this body, it's nothing but more to get you to the next level of where you need to go, where you need to be at, to actually get that peace within you, to get that healing. Because once you start healing, you can start loving. And when you start loving, you can start really helping others be in their best potential. You can start raising and bringing children into this world who make the world a better place. If you came from a situation that was just unfortunate, that you may have ended up in foster care, or you've had physical abuse, sexual abuse, mental, emotional abuse, all of that, you can overcome, and you can be the voice of reason of how and why you made it through, because there's always better than. After all that you went through, and you actually heal, there's so much better that is on the end of that. That light that shines after that, you're just gonna be like, wow, like I can't believe I was really feeling like that. I was really going through a dark time, but in the end, it was all worth it. It taught me something. You get closer to who you're really truly meant to be. Everything that we go through is made to shape us. Some people may have had it worse, but let me tell you, it's not the end of the world. Sometimes what you truly need is that inner healing. You really need to go in deep. You need to go in digging. You need to go in with the purpose of like, I'm gonna end this. I'm gonna end this karmic cycle. I'm gonna cut ties to that generational curse. When you start viewing the types of relationships also that you allow in your life, even I know a lot of people who allow just relationships, friendships, and romantic ones that just are no good into their life. Question that. Ask yourself, why do I allow this? Like, to me, I feel like when people allow themselves to be surrounded by people who serve them no good, that's an indicator of self-love. You don't really have self-love when you're allowing others to hurt you and push you down and really bring you to a place that just brings your vibration all the way down. Like, question why. Why are you so caught on certain things that serve you no good? Is it because you're trying to fill a void that is just empty? Because a lot of another thing I wanted to talk about is when people get into relationships at such a young age, and they form an attachment, and they're stuck in a relationship that may not serve them good, but they can't let go. Why is that? That comes from something that happened in your childhood. Like, if you hadn't had proper relationships modeled in your life, or proper friendships modeled in your life, where you know that those are healthy, and all you've ever seen was unhealthy relationships, then guess what? You're going to repeat those cycles. But when you're starting to understand that those emotions that you're feeling is something that you don't want to be feeling, question that. Start cutting ties with people. Start cutting people out that don't serve you good, and start to take a notebook, sit down and write down. Look at your childhood photos. Like, when were you just so full of life and happy? Like, honestly, when I look back at my childhood photos, there's been plenty of times I was happy. I've had happy moments, of course, throughout my whole childhood. My mom, who's raised me, she made the best out of my childhood with my sisters who are her daughters, and she did it all on her own. Like, I had wonderful experiences. However, when I look back at all of my photos as a child, I don't think there's any age that I didn't have trauma in my life. Like, I had trauma throughout my whole life. Like, it wasn't a time like, oh, that was right before I didn't experience trauma. No, I had trauma all my life, but guess what? It made me who I am today, and it made me come to the point that I am at today with my healing and being opening my heart into a state that I needed to be open, so I could be the best mother that I could possibly be, so that I could be the best friend that I could possibly be, and the best daughter. I'm not perfect. I will never say I'm perfect, but I'm better. I'm better. And there's so many different paths that I could have taken because of my trauma, but I choose to be more aware of myself. I chose to be different in that karmic cycle and break generational curses. I decided to be who I always needed to be. And not to say that came like that. That came with time, patience, tears, pain. It came with a yearning to want to understand what was going on with inside of me. It came with a strong why. Like, why did I want to understand myself? I wanted to be a better mom. I wanted to be able to feel peace and love all the time, which is why I'm very rooted into my spirituality. I talk to God every single day. I thank God every single day. Like, that's my best friend. Like, I know when the wind is blowing, when I am in my bed crying and I hear those wind chimes clicking, I'm like, okay, God, I understand. You're here. You're there. I know that you got my back. I know that what I'm going through, you're trying to teach me something. I know that there's something that you want me to dig deeper in. And guess what? Each and every time that I went deeper and deeper and deeper and started to really put little things together from childhood, from my adolescent years to my early adulthood years to now, I'm just like, oh, I understand why I do that. I understand why I'm the way that I am. I understand why I choose to do this instead of that. And I see some bad things that I may need to change about myself, because that's not a good quality. But guess what? We're all growing. We're all learning, and we're all evolving. But I guarantee you, if you want that peace, if you want that inner love inside of you, you have to work on what's inside. You have to. You have to start fixing. And that is my message. That is my message for today. And if you feel like you're in that particular situation, if you feel like maybe you haven't dealt with certain things, or if you sit back and you like, dang, I do certain things that I really don't appreciate about myself, and I can understand why I do that, or where this and that came from, start writing it down. Start writing down those habits, or start making it a habit every single day to be aware of the things that you're doing, whether it's crying a lot, whether it's self-destruction, self-sabotage, or just being plain on mean or rude. That all stems from somewhere. And I'm telling you, take the initiative to start healing yourself and start questioning why you are who you are. Everybody has a chance out here to be the best version of themselves, but you can't be out here walking and just expecting to fix yourself without addressing what really is the problem. We all have a root problem. We all have healing to do. And whether yours is big or small, we could all benefit from it. And if yours is large and you resonate with my message, I'm telling you, start there. I wish somebody would have told me to start there when I started on my journey, because I was going in all different directions. I mean, granted, I'm here where I am now and I'm healing. But if I knew to start healing my heart chakra, start aligning my energy and my vibration, and really just staying focused on what's going on within, I would be much further along. I would be much further along in my journey. And that's why I'm releasing this message to the world, to whoever wants to hear it, to whoever's open to listen to my voice, because we all have a voice. Take it, use it, and heal. And that is my message for today. Stay blessed, everybody.